Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And we are very excited tonight to welcome a special guest. He is the newly promoted Director of Player Development for the Baltimore Orioles. Joining us for the first time, Anthony Villa. Anthony, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
So first off, congratulations on the move into your new role, which took place earlier this offseason. How are you preparing for your first season in this role?
Just really making sure that I'm communicating with all of our different departments. Previously serving as the hitting coordinator, your communication is focused mainly on your hitting coaches, your hitters, maybe medical and strength and conditioning as some support staff. But now, overseeing all of player development and having quite a few people help me at that, just making sure that we're touching base with everyone in the broader scale department.
So when Orioles fans are like, promote Enrique Bradfield to AA, is that directed at you now?
Partially. It's still a group decision. There's going to be, a team of us that are working to make quality decisions. So, but if they want to yell at me, they can yell at me.
You could take it.
Sure.
And also for anyone who's not watching live and just listening on the podcast feed, he is rocking an On the Verge t-shirt. So best guest that we've ever had on the show. So you were a hitter during your playing days. Like you mentioned, you spent the last few years working with hitters in the system. But what's it like to now have to incorporate pitching development into the fold with your new role?
Yeah, a little outside of my comfort zone there. Definitely just trying to listen and learn. Been fortunate to have good relationships with our pitching people over the years. And, part of the hitting side of things is study the enemy. And so, I'm familiar with some of the metrics and styles, but certainly no expert, and wanting to just make sure I'm building good relationships with our pitching coaches, pitching coordinators, and our pitchers.
Nice. You were originally hired to be the hitting coach for Aberdeen after the 2019 season, but 2020 season, COVID obviously had an impact on that. But you've still been with this organization since late 2019. How have you seen the organization evolve, or where do you think you've seen the organization evolve the most since that time?
Yeah, when COVID struck, we had a lot of people in sort of their first year in the organization, starter roles, and it's been really cool to see people promoted throughout the organization and grow with the org. Both staff and players have ascended pretty quickly. Along with that, when you're first starting out, you're really trying to get your philosophies dialed in. And then over time, you start to really grind on those philosophies and think, okay, how can we apply context to these to better service what's showing up in the game? And so I think we've seen a really nice blend of new people helping establish philosophies and then continuing to vet those philosophies and grow in them.
Yeah, even for us, it's been cool to watch like the coaches get promoted as well as the players. Like today it was announced Oscar Mercado is the AA manager and Felipe Alou going up to Aberdeen. It's just that consistency is nice to see as well. And
yeah, really happy for Berto, really happy for Felipe. We've got Colin Woody, who's going to be a new manager in Delmarva as well. I know the staff getting released today is always pretty exciting, and yeah, it's been great to see really good people continue to rise in the organization.
I always get Roberto and Oscar, the former Guardians Indians prospect player, mixed up sometimes. So apologies there. Love that guy. But also the promotion strategy since 2019 seems to be like to challenge the players at the level they're at, and then when they meet that challenge, advance them to the next, and so on and so forth till they get to AAA, where obviously the stakes are a little bit different. Does that remain consistent now that like the elite talent pipeline is established and packed full? And what are the pros and cons of that approach, as opposed to what we've seen in the past before Elias and company took over, where it was like a year-to-year, level-to-level progression?
Yeah, hard to say if that's going to change or slow down. I think everyone might have good reason to believe it may not be as rapid with the major league team being as competitive as they are, the AAA team being as competitive as they are. There's only so many spots available, but Over the years, the organization's been in a position to move players that have proved it pretty quickly. We think that that's worked out quite well. Players playing at levels, being young for their age and developing skills quite rapidly. And cons, you're not learning all of the lessons maybe that the level has to show itself over the course of a long season, but we certainly feel like it's been great to push our players, and we've been really proud of their progress.
It seems like in Aberdeen specifically, like we watch so many of these top prospects: Gunner, Cowser, Mayo, Kerstad, Beavers. I just go on and on, but it seems like Aberdeen, the in-game results may not have been there for a while, but eventually it clicks for so many of these guys, and it's like a NASCAR pit stop almost. It's like they come in, they get some adjustments, get some tweaks, and then they're out like a rocket, and they're up at AAA by the end of the year. Like what's been the, speaking of promotions, what's been the secret there to making sure these guys are staying focused and not getting, frustrated when maybe the process is right, but the results aren't always there for them?
Yeah, I don't know if there's really any secret. Rather, we try and make sure that our transitions from level to level are smooth. There's inevitably going to be some of those pit stops, as you referenced. Every level gets a little bit harder and, provides its own challenges. And so, Aberdeen does happen to be a pretty challenging level. We think that the jump from low A to high A is very significant. The style of play starts to take on Major League Baseball a little bit more. Just the way that like pitchers are evolving, and just it becomes a pretty competitive level. And so, again, it's been really cool to see players move quickly and try their hand at all these different levels. And we're just really proud of the work that they put in regardless of where they're at.
As we focus on promotions, one thing that I think we always think about and a lot of our listeners ask about is what is the toughest jump outside of AAA in the major leagues? And it seems like in the last few years with the Orioles, you've had a little bit of an adjustment curve from low A to high A, but I'm sure it's more complex than that. So from what you see on both the hitters and the pitchers side, where does the biggest adjustment kick in?
Yeah, that's a tough question because everyone's journey is so individual. While some guys might move gracefully from low A to high A, others might not. My personal opinion, I do think that low A to high A jump is pretty significant. I think post-COVID, the landscape now, we're seeing this jump from FCL to Delmarva to low A be pretty significant as well. The slashing of short season A has made moving from the complex league up to the full season affiliate quite the challenge also. I know traditionally speaking, people say like once you get into double A, that's real professional baseball. And I think there's aspects of that too. Double A is a tough level. But if I had to give you an answer, my personal opinion would be the jump from low A to high A.
You mentioned the elimination of short season there, and that's you're really the first guest we've had on to be able to ask this to. Delmarva is like my favorite level to pay attention to once things get rolling. I love watching these guys, such 18, 19-year-old kids, when it starts to click for them and you see them take off. And, identifying those guys who maybe aren't putting up the big numbers, but you can see that potential kind of shine through most nights. But, how has the organization gone about preparing these 18, 19-year-old kids really to make that jump from complex league to full season now that that short season step has been eliminated since the pandemic?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. It's certainly a fun level because while the quality of baseball may not be as polished as AAA, the learning that takes place is huge. And so, big tip of the cap to our complex league staffs, both in the Dominican Summer League and the FCL. There's a ton of education that goes on both on the field and off the field. And then we're just constantly showing them clips and telling stories of what's taking place at those upper levels so that they feel as prepared as possible. Inevitably it's still going to be tough when they get up there, but we really do pride ourselves from top to bottom being a really unified organization with the messaging that we give our players. And we feel like if we can educate them and we can show them what's up ahead, then they're going to be a little bit better to handle some of those tough times coming.
They need to like crank the air condition and sleep with no blankets to get used to the cold weather. And
it's funny. Some of our Latin American players, they get up there for the first few days of practice before season starts. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's freezing. Like, it's 45, 50 degrees. I've never spent a day below 60 degrees from playing in the DR and then playing in Florida. This is their first experience at something sub 60 degrees. It's crazy.
Yeah. I remember when you had Sam Jelinek on, the former voice of the Shorebirds. And I think one of my favorite stories, I guess, is told on the show was when Daryl Hernandez was still in the organization. And he was, 20 years old at the time, but he was like the old man down there at Delmarva. And you're telling guys, hey, make sure you wear long sleeves tonight. It's going to be cold. And they're like, until you get in that game action, you don't realize how cold it is. But one more question about that, because you played in short season ball when you were in the White Sox organization, and then you made that jump to low A. Now you're on the other side of the game here. Do you, from your experiences, is there anything that like what's missing in the development process with the elimination of short season ball? Is it something that's significant that the organization is still trying to tinker with and understand and wrestle with, or do you think maybe it's been beneficial in some way even?
I think it's been beneficial. It sort of forces the growing up a little bit more. I don't know how much more there is to do, or if you could really say there's something missing, because until you try your hand at going out and living on your own, playing the extended season, 120 plus games, the bus travel, sleeping in hotels, it's just, there's so many additional environmental aspects that are different than the complex league, where you're still sleeping in your own bed every night. You're not playing series, you're playing single games against teams. So yeah, just like all of those differences, I think it's really healthy to challenge our players with.
How rare is it for an organization like the Orioles to be in the spot that they're in right now, which is you've now had back-to-back-to-back number one prospects in the game, coming off a 100-plus win season, and a farm system that shows no signs of slowing down when it comes to producing talent?
Very, very rare. I mean, certainly hoping that we're showing no signs of slowing down, but it's been really cool to be a part of. It's been amazing to see the individual player stories, as well as the way that these guys bond as a team and go about playing together throughout minor league baseball. And you just love seeing this rise up through the minor leagues and help influence the major leagues. And we think what the major league team has done has obviously been incredible.
I mean, the fact that we just traded for Corbin Burns, an ace, true ace in every sense of the word, and we lost two great players. Joey Ortiz, one of my favorite players in the organization, DL Hall, just incredible ceiling, and we're still the number one ranked farm system by a mile. It's crazy, but it's cool as Orioles fans because we're spoiled, and we can go root for these guys when they go to other teams and hope they achieve their ceilings somewhere else, except when they're playing against us, of course.
Yeah, certainly rooting for Joey and DL. Hope they have a tremendous opportunity in Milwaukee, and we'll miss them. At the same time, very exciting to be able to get Corbin Burns. And, again, it's a testament to the way that these players work, the way that the coaches work, and just really cool to see everyone continue to push to be the best versions of themselves.
Coming off this 101 win season at the major league level, a lot of that was really driven by this young core that we've now seen rise to the top. We just talking about here, still boasts one of the top farm systems in baseball. And while things seem to be going very well for this organization, how much more pressure is now added with all these increased expectations from your point of view and in the player development side of things?
There's no increased expectations if you look at Fangraphs or Baseball Prospectus, so don't worry about
it. I mean, I'm sure there's pressure, of course, but that's why we play the game, right? That's what you want. You want that pressure. Certainly a privilege to have that pressure on you. It means you're doing cool things that people care about, and And so, yeah, we're excited to be in this type of situation.
And it was a cool moment earlier this off season when the International Dominican Republic Academy was revealed, and that continues to just take flight, and the international prospects continue to trickle up the system as that part of the game matures that Elias and Kobe Perez brought to the organization. Do you see any breakouts this year in the mold of a Samuel Basayo? Maybe not to like a top 10 or 15 prospect in all of baseball, but do you see any guys that are just going to pop this year when it comes to the international front?
To the level of Basayo, I mean, that was quite the leap. Pretty cool. We're very proud of him. He's worked tremendously hard. I'll go with a pitcher and a hitter, maybe as like names to look out for. Luis De Leon as the pitcher. He spent some time in the complex last year as well as up in Delmarva, and definitely flashed some exciting stuff. And then offensively, Brylan Tavera had a nice year in the Florida complex. I know that he's gotten some publicity, but I saw him down in the DR recently. I was able to be there for the inauguration of the new academy, and it's incredible. The organization did an amazing job with that, and Tavera is looking pretty good. We're very excited for him.
He's actually been one of the few prospects in the system that I've struggled to kind of wrap my head around, just because he gets at the time a record signing bonus for an Orioles international signing. So obviously the organization loves him. A lot of public reports, like you mentioned, he's gotten some high praise publicly, these public Baseball America outlets like that, top 15, 20 prospect in the system. Some outlets are kind of skeptical on him. We obviously haven't been able to get our eyes on him up close and personal. Hopefully he's in Delmarva this year and we finally get to see him live for the first time. But when we get to watch him in Delmarva this year for the first time, what kind of player can we expect to see with him?
Yeah, him along with so many of these international players, they're so young. So the rate of change can be so great. Observing Brylan in the Dominican Summer League in 2022 and then the FCL last season in 23, he has the potential to be a 5-tool player. The frame's very exciting. He controls the strike zone really well. The contact skill increased this past season in the FCL. There's big power potential there. So we certainly like the upside. Now, that's not to say that there won't be some struggles in Delmarva. Definitely a learning curve, but at his age and how young he'll be for the level, if he's getting regular opportunity, we would be very excited to see how he continues to mature.
And speaking of that, it's something we've observed the last couple of years is a young guy coming into Delmarva. Your hopes are high, like Daryl Hernandez in 2021, Creed Willems in 2022. They don't perform all that well, but you can see flashes, and then they come back to the level the next year and just excel. And that's kind of what we're expecting Anderson De Los Santos to do. So just saying, if Brylan Tavera comes out and doesn't light up the field this year, that doesn't mean that he won't do it the next year.
Yeah, certainly. You mentioned Daryl and Creed, both two great stories. And again, some common themes you're going to keep hearing, like the learning that's taking place. And so if you're playing at a level and you're young, there's a lot of learning taking place. And if it doesn't go great, you have your chance to get them next year. You mentioned Anderson De Los Santos, played really well at the complexes. This past year had some ups and downs in Delmarva, but he's still young and very talented, shows good tools, and we're really excited for his season coming up this year as well.
Going back to the academy in the Dominican Republic, which opened this off season, there's been a lot of focus on how that's going to help the Orioles bring in players off the international free agent market. And that's been something that Kobe Perez and his team have made significant strides on in the last few years. But from a player development perspective, how is it going to benefit players who are already in the organization?
It's going to be a game changer. We just had some players down there. Again, part of seeing the new academy, the inauguration, was also getting to stay down there for a little extra time and work with some players. And you're talking about having more space, 4 cage tunnels instead of 2. So that's just more reps, more work, more opportunity, 3 fields instead of 2. a lot more bullpens, classroom space. The cafeteria is bigger. The dorms are nicer. Just all of it creates a better experience and a better environment for player development to take hold.
We want to kind of turn back now to the work you've done with hitters in this organization. And one thing we've been wondering, we wanted to get your thoughts on this. What is easier to work with as far as development is concerned? Is it a player who hits the ball hard and in the air but has too much swing and miss? Or is it someone that has a plus hit tool that needs to tap into their raw power a little bit more and hit the ball in the air consistently?
I mean, it's sort of a trade-offs game, right? So if they have like this high slugging damage potential and some swing and miss, well, if they outslug their whiff, like they're still going to be productive. Assuming like the trade-offs are kind of equal, like the strengths and weaknesses of each are of the same magnitude, I would say it is like really hard to positively influence contact rates. So give me the guy with bat to ball skills that can grow into their power, especially if they're young. Not to say that you can't be a high swing and miss player and still be productive, but I think that contact skill can tap into some power as they continue to mature.
So how much power are we going to see from Enrique Bradfield Jr. this year? Those elite contact rates.
Elite contact rates, again, we really try hard to be able to communicate the profile of a player to them and use examples of players in the major leagues and put our heads together and have thorough conversation about how can you be the best version of yourself? How can you be the most productive? And so with Enrique, it's for sure high contact rates, getting on base. Shoot, every walk of his is like a double or a triple because of the ability to steal bases. And so if the on-base percentage can be really attractive for him, he's going to be an incredible player.
Yeah, it seemed like every time it walk, then a balk, and then a stolen base. It was fun to follow those FCL box scores. And speaking of that 2023 draft, it seems like from the position side of things, like a lot of plus athletes, ability to steal bases. I mean, even guys like Jake Cunningham, the tool shed himself, big power hitter, but he can steal bases, play good defense. Did the new rules at the major league level, like the shift rules, pickoff limits, and other rules that have been in place at the major league level, has that impacted how the organization goes about drafting players and developing players, or has that just kind of been like an added bonus?
As far as drafting players go, I'm not so sure. Like, not my area to weigh in on. I don't get to influence the draft process much, but as far as player development goes, certainly, I mean, we're looking at the level that we hope they're going to go play one day. And so we need them to be developing those tools and those skills. And so stealing bases, taking the extra base, all those little things that we can do to earn an advantage on the bases, ranging up defensively with limitations in the shift, just getting really good athletic players and starting to build some versatility with them. It's all very valuable.
All right. On a different note, ever since, I don't know, 2020, 2021, when the Orioles farm system really started taking off, I feel like a lot has been made of, there's all these great hitting prospects, but the pitching prospects or the pitching cupboard is bare was a famous line. We see the depth. We think 2024 is going to be the year where the pitching development in the minors really makes itself evident on a broader, wide scale. What kind of traits does a team look for, and how do you build off of that? It seems like, they like you guys like a hoppy fastball, a fastball with a little bit of zip to it, and then just work from there. What do you think?
Yeah, happy to hear the pitching department get some love from you guys. I know certainly over the past few years, it's been a lot of hitting prospects, and that's just sort of the way that the draft is lined up for us and the accumulation of talent. But we've been super proud of the pitching department for the past few seasons and think they've done a tremendous job of building value. As far as characteristics go, first and foremost, high character pitchers, high character people. The way that they work, the focus, the work ethic, it's really impressive. And then, right, with this new technology era, you're looking for metrics that seem to scale to higher levels. And so I don't think it's any secret in saying like velocity and movement are attractive, and guys that can find the strike zone with a multitude of pitches, like all of that's pretty attractive. And again, tip of the cap to our pitching department. We think extremely thorough how they go about building talent.
Look at that 2023 draft class, and it was loaded with pitchers and some guys that have some of the traits you just talked about. Is there a pitcher or two in that class you think is primed for a big breakout this year?
There's a lot of them. We were very excited about the depth, the pitching talent that we acquired in that draft class. I'll try and stay away from like the obvious names, the higher picks like the Baumisters, but I think Teddy Sharkey is a guy that could be pretty exciting. And being around him a little bit, that dude loves to pitch, just loves to get hitters out, very intense, and very fun to watch him do his thing.
I think a guest on our show called him a psychopath, and that was a compliment.
We're talking about going back to the coaches real quick with the announcement of the coaches. And sorry, it looks like the Orioles also just acquired Nick Maton live as we're recording this episode. All right. Cool. We'll dive into that later. But another hitter to the organization, as we have a former hitting instructor on. But with the release of the new coaching staff, it looks like there is a new name I wanted to ask you about, just because I've always said I think we need a whole podcast series on just the coaches and instructors in this organization, because there seem to be some high quality people on here as well. But new AAA hitting coach Mike Montville joining Norfolk as a hitting coach after he was with AAA system in Boston, former University of Maryland product here. What can you tell us about him, the new guy in the organization?
Yeah, well, I'll say first and foremost, the podcast with a bunch of different coaches would be pretty entertaining. The stories that they have in working with these players, the relationships that they build, certainly fun to listen to. We are very excited about Mike Montville. He was coaching out at the Arizona Fall League the same season that Kerstad and Reed Trimble and Prieto offensively were representing us out there, and they got along really well with Mike. He's a guy that we've had eyes on, and he's got some experience being in AAA with the Woo Sox. And he spent this offseason coaching for Puerto Rico for Caguas. They won the Winter League in Puerto Rico, and unfortunately they actually lost in the Caribbean Series today. So he's driving up to Sarasota to get ready for spring training tomorrow. But sounds like he had an amazing Winter League experience. His team played really well, and we really believe in Mike and are trusting him with some great hitters in Norfolk, and we're really excited for him to join the organization.
Speaking of Norfolk, or the upper levels of the system, the non-roster invitee list came out this week, and I know that Jackson Holliday is a name that a lot of Orioles fans are focused on, whether or not he's going to make the roster. But when you look at the group of prospects that were included as non-roster invitees, who really jumps out at you?
I mean, there's quite a few. Certainly Jax headlines it. Kobe Mayo had an incredible season last year. There's a lot of really good players. So very excited that camp is continuing to be competitive. Very excited for players not on the 40-man roster to be getting that learning experience, and just excited for that group to continue to stay together and push each other.
We always like to ask this question whenever we have a member of the player development staff on our show, and that is there a prospect or maybe a couple of prospects that you don't think get a lot of credit, maybe from outside the organization, that you think should get more attention?
This is the Matt Blood call your shot.
Matt
Joey
Blood.
Ortiz breaking out this year, 3 years ago.
Nice. Gosh, there's a lot of ways that this one could go. We've got a lot of really good players and a lot of players that deserve some limelight. So, we're certainly like super proud of the way that these guys work and push themselves. But if I had to, let's do this. Let's say a player that spent time at the complex, and then we'll go with like a new draft guy as well, since maybe they haven't had as much coverage as guys that have been in the system longer. So complex league, I said Luis De Leon as a pitcher, and we'll go with Tomas Sosa as a hitter. Left-handed bat. He believes he's the reincarnation of Ken Griffey Jr. He's an amazing kid. We're very excited about him. So I'll say Tomas Sosa. And then draft class-wise, I mentioned Teddy Sharkey not being one of those, top couple round picks, but we're very high on him. And say Matt Etzel played really well in his first little go in professional baseball. And again, another guy that wasn't first couple of round picks, but amazing athlete, showed really well. We're very excited about Etzel as well. So hope there's some names to look out for, and hopefully I'm right when we check back in a year.
Well, Etzel's a guy that really jumped on our radar last year with the way that he performed at Delmarva. It seems like he has a little bit of everything skill set wise. Is there something you think he's really going to, one tool you think he could really take a big step forward with this season?
I think the consistency is what really was so attractive. The bat to ball and power combination, the speed, played some center field, just like a pretty nice package. And I think the bat to ball skills could really show up as he continues to climb levels.
I'm just sixth tool being his beard, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. He's got a pretty good look to him. I think he said in the past, he dressed up as the caddy from Happy Gilmore for Halloween. You always got to love a good Halloween costume.
That's nice. That's awesome.
I just love the Tomas Sosa shout out, especially the fact that he thinks he's the next Ken Griffey Jr., my favorite player growing up. It seems like a lot of these, especially the younger international players, they're coming into this organization with some swag. I feel like Freddie Bencosme also believes he is better than anyone else. And I say that in a very positive way. The Fregendary hashtag. We know Basaya, we've seen glimpses of his personality. I think there was a video a couple years ago when he was in the complex league when he got hit by a pitch, a very soft pitch, and just like falls and really exaggerates the whole thing. It seems like a lot of these guys have a lot of fun personality. I know I'm excited to finally see more of these guys in Delmarva and work their way up to Aberdeen hopefully this year.
Yeah, a lot of fun personality. The young Latin American players are super fun to work with. It's really fun to see them continue to mature. We want to pump them up. We want to promote them and get them to be the best versions of themselves and show their personality and their flair. And yeah, they're a ton of fun to have around.
Well, Anthony, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciated your insight, and best of luck to you and the rest of the Orioles organization this season.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks again, guys. And thanks for all you do. It's always fun to come off the field after being at the affiliate games and check the Verge on Twitter and see the clips of who was punching tickets or hitting homers. So we appreciate you guys being such loyal fans. It's great.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
We look forward to delivering more of that in 2024. We will be back with our next episode later this week, taking a look at the Orioles' non-roster invitees to spring training. In the meantime, you can check us out on social media at Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. We are also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge.
Awesome. Thanks, man. That was awesome. That was great.
All right. Yeah, great. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Anytime. I'm sure we'll try to get you back.
Sure. Yeah. Let me know. And, more than happy to come join you guys and talk a little O's baseball.
Yeah, and I think we're going to try to do another live show at Checker Spot Brewery sometime. So
okay,
I'll let you know about that too.
Yeah, great.
Nice.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck this spring. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. See ya.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right.
Nice. Man, I'm just ready for baseball.
I know. Can't believe spring training's a week away, right? Live viewers right now. Let's get into that. That's next.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And tonight we're going to break down the Orioles slate of non-roster invitees in spring training this year, including Jackson Holliday, Kobe Mayo, Samuel Basayo, and other top prospects, as well as some veterans who have been around the league for a few years. And while we talk about this, we're going to each highlight a player that we think you should have a close eye on this spring. But first, as we like to do at the top of all of our episodes, we want to welcome some new members to our Patreon community. And with that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yeah, 3 new patron members. We must be getting closer to baseball. We're getting more patrons and love to see it. Appreciate the support big time. So thank you to Andrew S., to Keel McLaughlin, or Kyle. Sorry for the pronunciation, but thank you. And Andrew Roble, who is an old buddy of mine. We've been talking Orioles baseball for 20 years, back on AIM when that was a thing, and on Orioles hangout message boards before that became toxic. So thank you for your support as well, and go O's.
And before we get into our non-roster invitees, just have to mention we had Anthony Villa, the Orioles director of player development, on our last episode. If you've not had a chance to listen to that yet, you should go back and listen to it after this episode. It just dropped earlier this week. Nick, I'll start with you. What were some of your takeaways from that interview?
I love the way, again, he just highlighted the continuity in the system. I know it's something we've highlighted in the past. It's been really fun to just watch not just the players get promoted very quickly and make an impact at the big league level, but we're seeing coaches, we're seeing instructors. You know, we didn't really touch on the major league coaches with him, but we're going to see Mitch Plasmeyer in the major leagues this year on the pitching side of things. Like Anthony Villa himself was a hitting instructor working with all levels of the minor leagues, and now he's director of player development. So it's front office as well. This organization really just they identify the right people and they put them on the right track, and guys are really, and women are really excelling in this organization, and it's just a lot of fun to see. And it's fun to see him genuinely excited about some of the younger prospects as well. It's going to make for a fun year in Birdland, I think, from all the way down to the brand new Dominican Academy, all the way up to hopefully the major leagues and a World Series victory. The train doesn't stop. Player development doesn't stop. That elite talent pipeline is not going to stop flowing.
Yeah, I mean, we already knew this, but it's just nice to confirm that the Orioles are in good hands as these guys who we've, like Matt Blood and company, they get promoted. Their replacements were in capable hands. Like they're doing it right. They're hiring guys who are smart, very capable, and care about what's going on and love it just as much as we all do. So yeah, it was a great interview. A great dude, and just very excited for this season and every season moving forward. Honestly, this looks like an elite talent pipeline that has no end in sight, and couldn't be happier.
Yeah, and thank you again to Anthony for joining us. That was his first time on our show, and hopefully not the last. So we'll get in now to the non-roster invitees this spring, which were announced by the Orioles earlier this week. And it's sort of a typical slate in the sense that you have a lot of catchers, 5 catchers total getting non-roster invitees, a lot of pitchers, and a mix of some veterans as well as prospects. With the prospects, though, there's some big names to keep an eye on. Kobe Mayo, coming off a really, really strong season, gets a non-roster invitee, as does Samuel Basayo, who had a huge breakout in 2023. And then Jackson Holliday, the consensus #1 overall prospect in the game, and a guy that a lot of Orioles fans are clamoring to see in Baltimore on opening day this year. Bob, I'll start with you. When you look at that trio in particular, what jumps out at you?
What doesn't? I mean, Samuel Basayo bombs in spring training. Kobe Mayo, who's not just there to take in the experience, he's actually going to be competing for a job on the opening day roster. Same with Jackson Holliday. Was such a surprise last spring that he was invited at all, and then he sticks around so long, and now he's like seriously contending to be the starting second baseman on opening day. So it's just going to be fun to see how long a guy like Basayo sticks around. Hopefully he gets a chance to to show what he can do and shine the way Holiday did last year. But it's just going to be awesome to watch these guys just compete and see what they do with the opportunity and go out there and show what they've improved upon from their amazing 2023 campaigns to get ready for an even better 2024.
Yeah, I think we're all gonna highlight pitchers later on in here as like guys we're super pumped to see, just because on the hitting side of things, there's some big names like you guys have mentioned, but the catchers, you need catchers. You need that depth in spring. Obviously, Basayo is the standout there, but I almost get the sense that Basayo being up this spring is kind of like going to serve the same purpose that it did for Jackson Holiday last year. It's just like absorb all you can while you're up here. And you're probably going to be up here, hopefully for longer than anticipated, but just absorb everything you can when you're up here because you're probably not going to be in the minor leagues for very long. Holiday obviously still has to earn it, but I think he's going to get every single opportunity to make the opening day roster. I would bet big money that he is on the opening day roster. Mayo, that's going to be exciting as well, obviously, to watch him hit some spring training bombs down there in Florida. I'm still not convinced that he makes the opening day roster, even with a big spring, as far as the roster set now, just because I think the Orioles do want to see him get more work in the outfield down in Norfolk, and they're going to use that defense excuse even at third base to kind of push his rookie status into next year, especially if Holiday is up on the major league roster. I'm not saying I agree, but I could see that's how the organization handles that with Mayo, but still, he's going to get a very long look this spring and have an opportunity to make that opening day roster, which is exciting. As far as the hitters go, I feel bad because Connor Norby is there as well, but we kind of know like Norby's path. There's a name that's not there though that I'm intrigued by, and I don't think he was there last year either. He doesn't get protected in the Rule 5 draft, doesn't get selected. He wasn't an invite last year. He's not an invitee this year. Hudson Haskin still nowhere to be found. That's an intriguing one to me as well. The guy who's not there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a little bit of sense. Look, there was really no outfielders invited just because it's so crowded, and Daniel Johnson is the only guy that gets the invite in the outfield. But yeah, Hudson Haskin, he's got to be thinking, what's a guy got to do to get some love around here? But maybe stay healthy for one. But that's besides the point. If I could respectfully disagree with your Kobe Mayo take, I actually think he's going to have a legitimate, real chance. He might have to just ball out, but I think if they see enough like improvements and they already saw some improvements from when he got to AAA to where he ended, I feel like if there's enough improvements there and he just shows them, look, I'm ready, let's go, I think he could force them to make room for him. I'm not saying that's like the most likely scenario, but I do think that is a possibility.
Yeah, when I look at the infielders, the fact that you have Ramon Arias and Jorge Mateo on the roster still, and I know I'm opening a can of worms by mentioning that, but it does complicate the path forward for some guys initially. And I think Norby is in that bucket. I actually think that Joey Ortiz getting traded to Milwaukee helps Norby a little bit because that's one less middle infielder in the system. But you still have Ramon Arias and Jordan Westberg ahead of Norby, two right-handed hitters that can play second base. Mateo is also a right-handed hitter. With Holiday, the reason that I think that the opportunity is going to be there is that the Orioles have not gone out and signed a left-handed hitter who can play up the middle this offseason. And that's something they've done the last two offseasons with Adam Frazier and Rougned Odor. This offseason, they haven't done it. And I don't think it's because they think that there's some strategy behind not having left-handed hitters in here. I think it's just that their thought process is that maybe Jackson Holiday is the guy who can fill that role. And if he can't fill it right away, then they wait and see how quickly he can do it. So I do think he's going to get every opportunity in spring training. I do want to get your guys' thoughts on this, though, because it's something that a lot of our listeners bring up, which is he still kind of hits the ball on the ground a little more than what I think you would like to see. What does he have to do offensively in camp to make it? Is it hit the ball consistently hard in the air, even if the results aren't there, or is it just go in and out hit everyone, get on base no matter how you do it?
Yeah, I think that's it. You just got to showcase yourself, put yourself in the best position you can, and whether that's to raise your trade value for another team that's watching you do it, or if it's just like the Orioles are like, he's a man on a mission. At least to start the year, let's get him up there. While he's hot, let's take advantage of it. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough unless they clear room. I do think that, and I saw this on our Discord. Please join. Link below if you haven't. But people are saying, Ramon Arias obviously seems like a guy that you can trade for some value now and replace him with these young guys, and maybe they will. I think they're holding on to some guys just in case of injuries. So I think you could see some moves late in spring that really opens things up for some people. But yeah, Norby, just go out there, ball out, just crush the ball, show you've improved all around the board, and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the power. I think that's going to come. He's getting bigger and stronger. He's still a teenager. That's going to come, and I'm not worried about that at all.
Who are we talking about?
I was talking about Holiday.
Oh shoot! I thought we were talking about Connor Norby.
Well,
I was
whoever we're talking about.
Maton thing, sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up too. It's like we're talking about Holiday here, and like this is live, like this is just happening as we're recording this. So I can't wrap my head around it and sit here and try to research it and look into this as we're trying to record a show. But I think he is a left-handed hitter who plays second, third, short, some outfield. I don't know. He's got some experience with Philly. He's got some experience with Detroit. I mean, he's a 208 career hitter in the major league level. But, you look at Ryan O'Hearn, you look at Adam Frazier last year. We're so close to pitchers and catchers reporting and spring training games starting. I thought we were in the clear there for the Orioles bringing in the Odor Frazier replacement. But it looks like they have brought that in Nick Maton. Any initial concern there with him? Or just depth?
I feel like it's another Tyler Nevin move. Like, I think this is just what the Orioles feel like they have to do when these guys get designated for assignment. They feel like a player's not going to make it to them, but they're interested. So they're like, hey, how about $10,000 for him so we can skip the line? I think it's like that. I think he'll eventually be waived by us again, and hopefully just like Lewin Diaz will make it through and be AAA depth. That's the hope for me anyway.
My initial reaction, because it does look like, and I don't think this has been confirmed yet, and mind you, we're recording this on Wednesday night right after the move happened. It looks like he's getting a 40-man roster spot, which to me kind of indicates that maybe this is an insurance policy in case Holiday doesn't play well in camp. I don't think that he's going to block Holiday by any means, because I think we know that the upside with Jackson Holiday making the opening day roster is higher than it is with Nick Maton for a variety of reasons. But if Holiday doesn't work out and you've got that roster spot to fill, Maton is a logical guy to fill that with. Now, if Holiday does go in and have a big camp and gets the spot, then like Bob said, hopefully you're able to sneak Maton through waivers and he goes to AAA and he's depth for you, because as we saw last year, there is a lot of benefit in having those kind of players get everyday opportunities in Norfolk. You're going to play better. You're going to have a better team on the field. You're going to be able to ease in your younger players more. So Daniel Johnson, going back to non-roster invitees, is another guy who fits that mold. He's not going to make the opening day roster, but he'll make Norfolk's roster, and he'll make Norfolk's roster better.
Yeah. The only thing that I would be concerned about, and not concerned about, but worried, is like, how many rookies do you think the Orioles are going to put on this 26-man roster and give regular playing time to? They're all fantastic rookies. They're all good, but like Colton Cowser, obviously he still needs to prove it at the major league level. Kerstad still needs to prove it at the major league level. Holiday still can't drink a beer at a bar legally. And Mayo, he's still incredibly young as well. And it seems like they're going to want to move him around defensively to get that bat in the lineup. When you're wanting to compete in the AL East, and you got, we kind of joked with Anthony there earlier about all the projection systems putting Baltimore at third in the division this year. I do wonder how many rookies are they going to want to put on this opening day roster. That would be the hesitation, I think, with some of these guys. But
that is a very real question. Too real. Yeah, you would think maybe no more than 2 at a time, at least in the past. But I wonder if, because our rotation should be super strong, you would imagine that the pitching should be a plus this year. And if you look at the schedule, the first 6 weeks of the season look pretty nice for the Orioles, pretty weak as far as the opposition goes. So if you're going to say, hey, let's just get it over with, let's do it, we can compact these learning experience, these that first, just like Gunnar had that first 4 to 6 week slump, and it seems like a lot of prospects do, a lot of players do. Maybe you just want to get that out of the way during the weakest part of the schedule when you have the pitching to maybe overcome it and see what happens. But yeah, I think most likely it's like 2, maybe 3 if you want to stretch it. But who knows? They've surprised us before.
Let's turn our attention now to the guys that we have our eyes on, as Nick mentioned, towards the top of the show. It is heavy on pitchers. And I'll start with Bob, because although it said pick 1, Bob picks 3. So there's a lot to get into here. So, Bob, you've picked an interesting mix of players. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Guilty as charged, but I do have a reason for this. I picked the slash, that's 1. Nate Webb / Ronald Guzman / Tucker Davidson. I did that because I think, just like, I mean, obviously Yunier Cano didn't make the roster out of opening day, but it wasn't very long after. I feel like there's going to be a guy that just pops in spring training and comes out of kind of nowhere. And it's like, whoa, who is this? Why are they like 7 scoreless innings with 15 strikeouts this spring? And I feel like one of these guys is going to make the team out of spring training and be like a weapon we didn't know we had. I feel like that's happened the last 3 or 4 years with the Orioles and these waiver claims / non-roster invitees. And I think also, Zach, your pick is along the same lines, but that at least is a name that we're familiar with. So like Nate Webb, I know he's coming off an injury. He was with the Royals, right? I think he was with the Royals, decent prospect, could pump that fastball up to close to triple digits. Just think, if he's healthy and he's dealing, maybe that's someone. Ronald Guzman's very similar, but from the left side. He's a position player prospect, switched to pitching, and from the left side can get the ball up to 100 miles per hour. Doesn't really know where it's going, but we've seen the Orioles improve command. So maybe, he's out of options. So he's either going to have to go through, I don't know. He's a non-roster if he has no options. So we'll see what happens with him, but I don't know where I'm going with that. But and then Tucker Davidson's a very interesting one. I know we talked about him a little bit because that was like that first offseason move that the Orioles tend to make, like with Joey Crable back in the day. And I forget some other Ryan O'Hearn last year, but I feel like his splitter, like he's got a decent pitch mix, especially he's started in the past, but as a reliever, I feel like, you traded DL Hall. Obviously, Tucker Davidson is not DL Hall, but if you wanted a lefty that could maybe get some outs late in games, I think maybe Tucker Davidson becomes that guy. We'll see, but I'm betting that one of these 3 guys is going to break out and can.
yeah, I was trying to look at Webb. He's a righty. Oh, okay, that eliminates the point I was going to make. But still, Davidson and Guzman being lefties, I think it is kind of just, who was the guy who pitched for VMI? It was Andy Koska's boy last year in spring training, that reliever.
Reed Garrett?
Yeah, Reed Garrett.
Then the other one too, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, you give these guys time in spring, and then you send them down to Norfolk, or they pass through waivers when that really hectic time when teams are reshuffling their rosters and getting their 26-man straight. You kind of shove these guys through waivers and hope nobody notices because there's so much chaos going on. You send them down to Norfolk, and then you bring them up, and they come, and if they show you something good in AAA or in the big leagues this spring, you bring them up for a week or 2 if there's an injury or you need some innings when arms are getting tired in the bullpen, and maybe like that's their only appearance, and then you try to DFA them again to get them off the roster, but they get claimed and they move on. Like, it's going to happen to 3, 4, 5 guys this year. But it's cool to see these lefties. I'm more intrigued by Ronald Guzman just because we've never seen him do it. And so he is a lefty. He was a first baseman in other organizations, and he's converted to pitcher. Orioles went heavy this offseason and converted pitchers. That minor league kid from UConn they signed earlier, he's not coming to spring training. He's going to rookie ball, but still multiple guys that they signed like this. It's cool to see that he's a lefty. He's throwing 96 miles an hour as a lefty. He's got a slider. He's got a changeup. He was with the Giants last year and was going to pitch with them, but the injury happened and he ended up missing pretty much the whole year and then got released. I mean, it's a no risk, I'm not going to say high reward, but some sort of reward signing for the Orioles. You bring him in spring, see what he can do on the mound. If he doesn't work out, you cut him, you move on, or you throw him in Norfolk and say, see what you can do down there. And if it's not working out, you cut him, you move on. Guys like that, it's fun to see who among these Flyers maybe sticks out and gives us some valuable innings at some point this year in the bullpen when we need that extra help.
I find Davidson interesting because his strikeout numbers in the minor leagues have generally been good. It hasn't really carried over the major leagues, but the strikeout numbers in the minor leagues have generally been good. He was with the Braves when Drew French was there, so there's that connection built into it. But Guzman, I feel like good or bad, his spring training outings are going to be must see whatever we have, whether it's TV or radio or we have to watch the little dots move around on game day. Whatever it is, it's going to be must see because hasn't pitched much at all. Former first baseman who's apparently throwing high 90s, can hit triple digits. That's going to be fun to watch either way.
Yeah, and I feel like he's almost the left-handed version of the guy you're going to talk about that was coming into spring training last year, where it's like, all right, let's see, and then obviously we'll get into that. But
Y'all talk about seeing these guys. I'm saying see as well, but we know we're going to get 2 spring training games, so we ain't going to see much of anything this spring, which is downside to all of this. But sorry to kill the vibe there.
Can we hurry up the Rubenstein ownership takeover? I know I saw today that it could be done in 6 weeks, which would be before opening day. But how about before spring training even gets started, so we can see some games?
I'll transition to my guy since Bob touched on it, and I'm going with Wanderson Charles. Charles was someone that this time last year we were kind of intrigued by because he had just been signed from the A's as a free agent and had terrible numbers at Double-A in 2022. But he could throw upper 90s consistently. The problem was he had no clue where it was going. He goes to Bowie to start last season, is absolutely dominant, gets promoted to Norfolk and really struggles there. But then as the year went on, seemed to get a little bit better. And the Orioles saw enough that after Charles became a minor league free agent earlier this offseason, they brought him back and are giving him a non-roster invitee spot. I don't see him as the guy who makes the opening day roster. I think a lot of things would have to break his way in order for that to happen. But just as someone who could go back to Norfolk and be a good depth option that you're going to need in a bullpen, because no matter how good you think your bullpen is coming to into the season, there's going to be a spot that opens up you don't expect. Charles last year, between the two levels, 45 and a third innings pitched, struck out 66 batters, walked 33, which is still pretty high, and his walks at Norfolk were high. But we've seen the Orioles do this before with guys who can throw hard but have command issues. Felix Bautista is the perfect test example of that. But we've seen the Orioles do this before, and Charles, I think it's conceivable that he could get a roster spot at the major league level in June maybe and never look back. Especially if the Orioles are able to ease him in where he's not pitching in high leverage situations right away, because he's got the stuff to do it. He's got the stuff to be a shutdown reliever. It's just that in the course of his career, which has had a few disruptions, he hasn't really been able to put the command together. But if he does, look out.
Yeah, what a roller coaster, our journey with Wanderson, because when he was signed as a minor league free agent last year, coming into spring. It was like, who's this guy that had like a 9.6 ERA in AA that walked more batters than innings pitched? And then we started dreaming on him after we saw what he could do. We saw video of him. We saw the stuff. And then he elects free agency, and it's like, oh man, I really wanted to see what the Orioles could do to continue working with him. And then I was so pumped when I think it was reported that they signed him back to a minor league deal and got him back. So very excited to see what he can do. Yeah, hopefully he just can continue to learn with the Orioles pitching development. He'll at least have Chris Holt to work with now. That could help. The roving instructor that's no longer the pitching coach for the Orioles. Yeah, I think he will start at AAA Norfolk. But like you said, he could be this year's Yunier Cano, where there's like, oh, and there's an injury or a guy who has an option, even though there's not many, that's struggling, that goes down to AAA. And let's give Ronaldson Charles a chance. And then he like strikes out the side to save the game like Cano did, whatever his dramatic entrance into the majors was last year. And then, like you said, he never looks back, and then he's just continues to grow his role in the major league bullpen. So he could flame out, no problem, in 2024, and we never hear from him again. But he could also be a guy that's like, all right, now this is a guy who's going to be in the Orioles bullpen for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly no denying that the Orioles unlocked something with Charles, because looking at his numbers again, Bob was very lenient on the ERA there. It was an 11.43 ERA. And imagine saying this guy's got an ERA of 9 and you're being way off. That's how bad it was for Charles. 11.43 ERA. I know we've ran these numbers a billion times on this show, but they're mind-boggling. A 350 average against and a 2.57 whip in AA when he was with Oakland. But when he came over to Bowie, he had a 2.35 ERA, a 127 average against, and a 0.78 whip. Goes up to Norfolk, and I'm doing quick math here, so fact check me. He struck out about 30% of hitters in Norfolk. Fangraphs told me that. You don't have to fact check that one. But a 30% strikeout rate in Norfolk. The walks did spike again. I do think you can attribute some of that to the ABS system, the automatic ball strike system. I'm not going to put all the blame there, but we've talked about that with guys like Ryan Watson, some others. I do think that's a factor with guys. But 53% of the runs he allowed in Norfolk came in just 3 outings, and he made 28 appearances for Norfolk. So he had 13 outings that went at least an inning where he did not allow a run. So yeah, the walks still an issue, but I think he was pretty good when he was with Norfolk. I don't know if he's going to be the savior if like Craig Kimbrell starts faltering, but I do think he's a really fun option to have in AAA. And clearly, like you guys have mentioned, the Orioles liked what he was able to do last year because they re-signed him to a minor league deal this year. If they didn't like him, they could have just let him walk and find someone else to fill that AAA depth role. There are like 200 people they could have signed to fill that role, but they brought Charles back. So good. I'm excited to see him in spring, see what he can do.
So with that, we'll go to the next guy, who's someone we've talked about a lot on this show, but I think we need to start talking about him a little bit more because it's starting to look like in a not too distant future, maybe he's an option for this major league pitching staff.
Yeah, one of my favorite guys in the system, to be honest. I want to see what Justin Armbruster can do. I think he's out to prove a lot of people wrong. I don't remember if he told this story live when he was on our show. Was that last year? Or if it was, we were just talking with him off air, but it was his brother who is also a pitcher. He pitches for Arizona State, or at least he did. He might have graduated by now, but he saw our tweet poking fun at Keith Law. Don't say his name too many times, he'll hear us. But calling Armbruster just an org guy after watching him for like 5 pitches. And now that's like a family thing, like a family joke. It's like they all tweet like hashtag JAOG. And I could never figure out what that meant. I'm like, okay, is this like their, I don't know, their agency or something? I don't know. These minor league agents got some weird things going on. But no, it's just an org guy. And I'm like, why did that never click with me? I love it. I love that it's a family thing now as well. But like, on the mound, he's legitimately, he's got good spin on his fastball, near elite induced vertical break. So you're talking about the hoppy fastball that's very effective up in the zone. He gets good swing and miss, good chase rates. I mean, just looking at his fastball, It doesn't have the velo. I will say that. Like, it's what, 92, 93. I think it's fair to want more there with the velo. It's not a Kyle Branovich fastball though. So, but it's also not a Grayson Rodriguez fastball. The slider's kind of in the same boat. I think it has good traits. AAA hitters chased it, but I think it's right there on the border of being a grade higher. And he's got some other pitches in the tool belt as well. I don't think any of his tools are super loud, and I don't think he has a standout weapon, but I do think the fastball slider are good enough to help him in the major leagues, at least in a major league bullpen. And I do think we see him in the major leagues at some point. And I'm pretty stoked to see what he can do this spring, because I don't know how much he pitched last spring, but I don't think it was very much, if at all. Maybe some minor league time, but I'm excited to see him in spring.
Yeah, I think this is a good pick. I think he's definitely underrated in the Orioles fandom. You know, I don't think any Orioles fans are calling him just an Or guy anymore, but I think some fans see his name and they're like, yeah, he's a solid option if all else fails. I don't know. Like, he was a workhorse down the stretch of that AAA season, going 6, 7, 8 innings. I think he could easily be Dean Kramer's replacement if, once he hits ARB and gets expensive. Well, if John Angelos was still around, he could be Dean Kramer's replacement as soon as he got expensive, just because I think he could be an innings eater in the back end of a major league rotation easily. I think, whether that's he gets traded because a team sees that value that he could provide like very soon, or if, like you said, that fastball slider combination could look really good in a bullpen and his velocity could play up a little bit. Yeah, I'm excited to see him get some starts in spring training and let him get a chance to go into AAA this year, fresh start, second time around, and just pitch for a shot in the majors. And I think he deserves it. He'll get it this year at some point or another. And excited to see Mr. Armbruster.
I thought that it spoke volumes about Armbruster, the way that he was able to make that jump from AA to AAA last year, because we have talked ad nauseum by now about how tough that was for pitchers last year because of the automated ball strike system and a lot of the other things that were in play. The fact that when you look at the International League collectively, it was much more of a hitter's league last year than it has been in the past. Armbruster's walk numbers in that context, I think, were actually pretty good at Norfolk, and they were inflated a little bit by one outing in particular towards the end of the year against Memphis, 5 walks over 6 innings pitched. But overall, his command at Norfolk, I thought, was fairly sharp. He was striking guys out, and I agree with both of you that there's not one pitch in that arsenal that really jumps out at you, but collectively, he has a lot to work with. And I don't really think the conversation with Armbruster is just, is he a big leaguer? Can he stick on a big league roster? I think is he a starter down the line? And he hasn't shown anything yet to make me believe that that's not possible. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does this year.
There are some years when he is Jeremy Guthrie and he's the Orioles ace. Like, I don't know. Like, I could see that in his future where he could be, perfect for a back end of a rotation. But if he's on a bad team, I feel like he's almost like a Bud Norris. I don't know. Just a guy that can go out there and give you those innings. Yeah, it might be like a low to mid 4s, maybe even high 4s ERA, but he's going to eat those innings up and he's going to be valuable and he'll be even better out of the bullpen if that's where he ends up.
I mean, a 4.7 ERA in AAA last year, like Zach touched on there, that was league average, below league average even. I forget. I mentioned those numbers earlier. I pulled them up a couple weeks ago. I think that was below league average ERA. Zips kind of likes him. Too many S's there. 106 innings. Again, projections, take them for what they are, especially for a rookie who has no major league experience, but 106 innings, 4.67 ERA, 0.8 F4. Like, yeah, if he gives us that this year, I think that's, hopefully we don't need him to make 22 starts at the major league level this year. But I don't know. I think he does have the stuff to kind of survive there in the major leagues, and not just survive, but be effective as well. I do think he is a bit of a sleeper. But when you also have guys, you go back to that Norfolk rotation last year, and 2 other guys who are invited to Major League Spring Training, and Chase McDermott and Kate Povich, higher ceilings. I mean, John Muley put Armbruster at number 24 on Baseball America's recent top 30 update for this year. This is a legitimate starting pitching prospect as well. He's right up there with Povich and McDermott. Maybe McDermott and Povich have higher ceilings, but Armbruster's no slouch himself on the mound.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this year. And with that, that does it for this look at non-roster invitees. We will be back next week at a special time. We're going to be on Tuesday night rather than Wednesday night. We are going to have some guests on the show as Andy Koska and Danielle Allentuck of the Baltimore Banner join us. They've done some excellent work over at the Banner this offseason. We're looking forward to recapping the offseason with them and previewing what lies ahead for the Orioles in spring training and the regular season. In the meantime, you can check us out on social media at Facebook.
Why?
At Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads, and on Substack, Orioles on the Verge.substack.com. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Smedden. You've been listening to On the Verge.
Oh my God.